Does everybody know the words? Maybe we should wait a second. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Vaisheshika in Iskcon Silicon Valley has the saying, keep the vibration going. If we have to wait, we should at least be chanting, doing something. I'm going to start and see if you, those who don't know it, see if you can follow along. Udila Aruna Puraba Bhage Dvijamani Gora Amani Jage Bhakata Samuha Loya Shate Gela Nagara Braje Tatai Bhajaloko Ghana Ghana Chahe Janjararo Preme Dala Dala Shonara Anga Chorane Nupura Baje Mukunda Madhava Jadava Hari Bolena Bolore Badana Bhori Michenida Bashe Gelore Rati Divasha Sharira Shaje Micheni Emona Durabha Manava Deho Payaki Koro Bhavana Keho Ebena Bhojire Jashoda Sutta Charame Poribe Laje Udita Tapana Hoire Ashta Tina Gelo Boli Hoibe Byashta Tabeke no ebe alasha hoi na bhaja hridoya raje Jivana anitya janaha shar tahe nana vidha vipada bhar Namashraya kori jatane tumi takaha apana kaje Jivera kalyana sadhana kam Jagate ashiye madhura nam Avidya Timira Tappana Rupe Hridgakane Viraje Krishna Nam Shudha Koriya Pan Jurao Bhakati Vinoda Pran Nama bina kichu nahiko aro Choda bhuvana maje. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Privrata Kacharya Statrasati Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Gangamayi Junmuna Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol. Can we have the translation of that song up? Someone was telling me the other day, when I joined the movement, we used to sing different bhajans all the time, all these different songs by Narottam Das Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and so on, Jayadev Goswami. And then we learned a lot about Krishna consciousness by learning these songs. This is a very beautiful song about Lord Chaitanya. Oh, here it is. When the eastern horizon became tinged with the... Here, I'll tell you what, because I need my glasses. Will someone read... Pundarik, why don't you please read the translation out loud?
When the eastern horizon became tinged with the redness that heralds the rising of the sun, the jewel among the brahmanas, Lord Gaurasundar immediately awakened. Taking his devotees with him, he journeyed through the towns and villages of Nadia. The mridrangas resounded tatai, tatai, and the jajas, large metal cartels that look like small cymbals, and that kirtan played in time. Lord Granga's golden form slightly trembled in ecstatic love of Godhead, and his footbells jingled. Lord Chaitanya called out to the townsfolk, "You spend your nights uselessly sleeping and your days decorating your bodies. Now just fill your mouths with the holy names, Mukunda, Madhava, Jadava, and Hari, chanting without offense. You have achieved this rare human body. Don't you care for this gift? If you do not worship the darling of Mother Yashoda now, then great sorrow awaits you at the time of your death. With every rising and setting of the sun, a day passes and is lost. Why then do you remain idle and not serve the Lord of the heart? You should understand this essential fact. Life is temporary and filled with various kinds of miseries. Therefore, carefully take shelter of the holy name and remain always engaged in His service as your eternal occupation. Desiring to bless all living entities, this sweet name of Krishna has descended to this material universe and shines like the sun in the sky of the heart, destroying the darkness of ignorance. Drink the pure nectar of the holy name of Krishna and thus satisfy the soul of Thakur Bhaktivinoda. There is nothing except the holy name within all the 14 worlds."
Jai, Hare Krishna. This is a beautiful song to be sung at dawn. Lord Chaitanya went out when the sun was rising to preach and sing and do Harinam Kirtan. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is comparing the holy name to the sun, that it can arise in your heart and destroy all the darkness of ignorance that's there. Lord Chaitanya preached this simple philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam, to not waste your life seeking material enjoyment and position and so forth, but to worship Krishna. Think of Krishna, remember Krishna, love Krishna, and the holy name will help us do that. And so this is a very nice song. There's another part to this song, Jeev Jago. I didn't sing that because we have a certain amount of time, but it is Krishna, Lord Chaitanya is calling, wake up everyone, wake up sleeping souls. Now, how long will you sleep in Maya, in the lap of the witch called Maya, and you previously promised that you would certainly worship me, but now you've forgotten your promise, and you remained in great ignorance, and I have the medicine, I brought the medicine to cure this disease of ignorance. It's the Maha Mantra, please take this medicine. Without me, what friend have you in this world? And I brought you this medicine, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that he's fallen at the Lord's lotus feet, having taken this medicine of the Hare Krishna mantra. And so this is our medicine. This is like Mukya was reading to us this morning. Srila Prabhupada was saying, this is our simple medicine. Chant Hare Krishna. That will help you remember Krishna, and that will help you develop all the good qualities. That's part of today's class. And if you don't remember Krishna, even if you have so-called good qualities, you will lose them and fall down. That's also the first. So the first verse we're reading today is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the purport, it's verse number 112. In the purport to verse number 111, it says this verse and the next are the quotations from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5, 2, and 3. So the first verse we're reading is verse 11.5, 3 from Srimad Bhagavatam. Now please repeat after me. Ya eshang purushang shakshad Atma prabhavam ishwaram na bhajantya bhajanati na bhajantya vijananti sthanad brashta patantyadhaha. If one simply maintains an official position in the four varnas and ashramas, but does not worship the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he falls down from his puffed up position into a hellish condition. And the next verse we're reading today is text number 113, is from the Padma Purana. It's a very important and famous verse. Smartavyak satatang vishnur Vismartavyo najatu chit Sarve vidhi nishedhaksyur Etayore bakinkaraha Smartavyak satatang vishnur Vismartavyo najatu chit Sarve vidhi nishedhaksyur Etayore vakinkaraha. Bolo. Smartavyak satatang vishnur Vismartavyo najatu chit Sarve vidhi nishedhaksyur Etayore vakinkaraha. Smartavyak satatang vishnur Vismartavyo najatu chit Sarve vidhi nisedhaksyur Etayore vakinkaraha. Smartavyak satatang vishnur Vismartavyo najatu chit Sarva vidhi nisedhaksyur Etayore vakinkaraha. Smartavyak satatang vishnur Vismartavyo najatu chit Sarve vidhi nisedhaksyur Etayore vakinkaraha. Word meanings, smartavyaha, to be remembered. Satatam, always. Vishnuhu, Lord Vishnu. Vismartavyaha, to be forgotten. Na, not. Jatuchit, at any time. Sarve, all. Vidhi nishedhah, rules and prohibitions mentioned in the revealed scriptures are given by the spiritual master. Syuhu, should be. Etayaho, of these two principles, always to remember Krishna or Vishnu and never to forget him. Eva, certainly. Kinkaraha, the servants. Translation, Krishna is the origin of Lord Vishnu. He should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be the servants of these two principles. Please repeat. Krishna is the origin of Lord Vishnu. He should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be the servants of these two principles. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This verse is a quotation from Padma Purana. There are many regulative principles in the Shastras and directions given by the spiritual master. These regulative principles should act as servants of the basic principle. That is, one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is possible when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, one must strictly chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 24 hours daily. One may have other duties to perform under the direction of the spiritual master, but he must first abide by the spiritual master's order to chant a certain number of rounds. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we have recommended that the neophyte chant at least 16 rounds. This chanting of 16 rounds is absolutely necessary if one wants to remember Krishna and not forget him. Of all the regulative principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is the most essential. That's a very clear statement there. What's the most essential of all the regulative principles? The spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds. At least 16 rounds. It doesn't mean you can't chant more, it means you can't chant less. One may sell books, or enlist life members, or render some other service, but these duties are not ordinary duties. These duties serve as an impetus for remembering Krishna. When one goes with a Sankirtan party or sells books, he naturally remembers that he is going to sell Krishna's books. In this way, he is remembering Krishna. When one goes to enlist a life member, he talks about Krishna and thereby remembers him. Smartavyak satatang vishnur, vismartavyo najatuchit. The conclusion is that one must act in such a way that he will always remember Krishna, and one must refrain from doing things that make him forget Krishna. These two principles form the basic background of Krishna consciousness. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyarishatarine. So this is a very important verse, and Srila Prabhupada would often recite a verse, Yena Tena Prakarena Smaran Krishna Niveshayat. Did I say that right? Somehow or another we have to remember Krishna. And then he would quote the last two lines of this verse, Sarve vidhi nishedhaksur eta yoreva kinkaraha. That all the other regulative principles are servants of these two basic principles. That why why do we practice Krishna consciousness? What are we doing? We're trying to attain or reawaken our original dormant Krishna prema. So there's sadhana bhakti, and then there's bhava bhakti, and then there's prema bhakti. So sadhana bhakti, with our senses, we perform different kinds of devotional service, including our chanting of 16 rounds, attending Bhagavatam class, and so forth. And these activities are conducive to actually awaken our dormant, natural state of spiritual emotions of actually being a servant of Krishna. That's who we really are. We've forgotten that in great ignorance. We've forgotten our promise to worship Krishna, and therefore we're undergoing death, old age, disease, and other sufferings. Icha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarve bhutani sangmohang sarge yanti parantapa. Krishna says in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that we see all living entities around us, all the animals, all the people in the store, everywhere going around. They're being driven by Icha dvesha, desire and hatred, or attraction and aversion. Their senses, they don't want to experience pain, they want to experience some kind of pleasure. Based on their previous karma, they've gotten a certain kind of body, and they're wandering through different species of life, trying to avoid pain and trying to experience pleasure, and therefore they're very active in all kinds of activities that aren't Krishna conscious. And then he says, Yeshang tuantakatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mang dridhavrataha. But those who actually are pious in this life, and who were pious in previous lives, and who are free from all sins, they can actually worship Krishna with determination, dridhavrata. They can remember Krishna. So in the previous verse, this verse, the first verse we chanted, is from the instructions to Maharaj Nimi in the 11th canto. We have this, we get things through parampara. So Shukadeva Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj how Narada Muni is explaining to Vasudeva, and Sutta Goswami is telling the sages at Naimisharanya about this conversation, that Narada Muni is telling Lord Krishna's father, Vasudeva, about how these 9 sons of Lord Rishabhadev instructed this king named Maharaj Nimi. And Chamasa Yogendra was instructing him about this thing, that if one doesn't worship Krishna, then in spite of being in one's proper position in society, one won't be able to maintain that position, and one won't remain a good person. One won't be able to perform his varnashram dharma, or his duties properly, but he'll fall down into a hellish condition of life. By remembering Krishna, one attains all of the great qualities of the demigods. And if one doesn't remember Krishna, yasyasti bhaktir bhagavat yakinchana sarvair gunas tatra samasate suraha. Right? That those who are actually devotees of Krishna, they have all the good qualities of the demigods. This is, I believe it's Hanuman saying this, or is it Prahlad Maharaj? Do you remember from the 5th canto? I think it's Hanuman, the residents of Kimpurusha Varsha. And then he says, Harava bhakteshu kato mahadgunan manoratenasa tatavatovahi. That if someone is not a devotee of Krishna, then what good qualities can he have? Because he's riding on the chariot of the mind. And so it's sure to fall back down into great ignorance like that. So there are qualities that people should have in a polite society. The ancient Greek philosophers used to ask, what is a good life? What is the good life? What is virtue? What is this person supposed to do? What's the duty of a human being? And often the philosophers would answer that good life is lived within a good society. That is, at least from the Vedas we understand, that society should be organized in such a way that it's led by learned Brahmins who know what the goal of life is, who know what spirit is, and how spirit is different from matter, and how the goal of life is to make spiritual advancement so we can go back to Godhead. So such a society is organized in a way that people do the work that has to be done in society according to the qualities they have that are associated with that work. And the quality of the spiritual leaders of society, the intellectual leaders of society, are given in Bhagavad Gita, Samo Dhamma, Tupak, Shocham, Kshanti, Rajava, Mevacha. These high qualities of being self-controlled and austere and honest and clean and Shantir Arjavam Evacha, Astikam, Shamo Dhammak Tapakshocham Kshantir Arjavam Evacha, Jnanam Vijnanam, to have knowledge, to have realized knowledge, or knowledge in practice. These are the qualities that Brahmanas work with. And society needs Brahmanas today because society has lost its way. It doesn't understand the goal of life is to attain Krishna prema. It doesn't understand that the goal of life is to serve Krishna. So Prabhupada said, we need to develop a group of actual Brahmanas who can actually lead society and who actually have these qualities. But how do we get these qualities? We can't just get them artificially. I mean, we can learn to be good people. We can learn to be polite, right? Don't chew with your mouth open, say please and thank you, Be nice to people in society. These things we should do, but nobody can do it all very well except the pure devotees. And there's in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's a number of qualities that devotees have that make them very dear to Krishna. He says that we should engage all our intelligence and our mind in thinking of him constantly. And if we can't do that, then we have to follow regulative principles so we can develop a desire to attain him. And then he describes these qualities of those who are his devotees, who do always think of him. And I'm going to read them to you because they're important qualities. So he says, one who is not envious, but who is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Then that was verses 13 and 14. Then verse 15, he by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. And then finally, those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. And in the purport to the previous two verses, 18 and 19, Srila Prabhupada says that we may find some repetition in the description of the qualifications of a devotee, but this is just to emphasize the fact that a devotee must acquire all these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee. And then he quotes that verse, Harav abhaktasya kuto mahad gunaha. One who is not a devotee has no good qualification. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications. Then he says, of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him to develop them. So, the first verse we read today talks about how even if you appear to have some of these so-called qualifications to be a proper person in a proper society, doing your proper duty, according to the qualities necessary to accomplish those duties. And in a bigger sense, Varnashram Dharma is Dharma, completely Dharma, that one should be a good person, one shouldn't do anything wrong, one should do everything right. One should, not lie, not cheat, not steal. Like Buddha came along when, Buddha Avatar came along when Brahmins had been so corrupted in Kali Yuga. They were saying, you want to eat meat? We can perform the rituals for you and then you can eat meat. They were misusing their Vedic knowledge to allow people to engage in adharma. And then Buddha Avatar preached what's called upadharma, these sub-religious principles, that don't be violent, don't kill animals. I don't care what the Vedas say you can do. Don't kill the animals. Don't satisfy your tongue by this violence. And one should be self-controlled. One should not commit adultery. We have these things in all religions, right? The 10 Commandments. Don't steal from someone. Don't lie from someone. Don't cheat. So dharma, in the full sense, is to be a good person and not to put anyone in any difficulty unnecessarily, and not to be disturbed by others, because you're remembering Krishna, you're happy. So these qualities, if you don't remember Krishna, if you try to develop these qualities externally, artificially, but without remembering Krishna, you won't be able to maintain those good qualities. That's what Chamasa Yogendra was telling King Nimi. And then the next verse, of course, the very important verse that Srila Prabhupada quoted so often, is that the whole purpose of all our rules and regulations, why do we get up early in the morning? Why do we worship the deity? Why do we chant our rounds? Why do we take a bath? Why do we wear tilak? Why do we shave our heads, those of us who shave our heads? And why do we go out on book distribution, do all the things we do that the Prabhupada has prescribed for us, is to help us remember Krishna constantly and to ultimately to reawaken our dormant spiritual emotions and be fixed in a steady bhava, remember our actual position as devotees, servants of Krishna, eternal servants of Krishna, and go back to the spiritual world and live eternally with Krishna there in our natural, eternal, perfected body. So we do all this. All these things are servants of this one principle, to always remember Krishna, and also to never forget Krishna. So anything that helps us remember Krishna and is approved by the spiritual master, that we should accept very wholeheartedly. And things that help us forget Krishna or allow us to forget Krishna, things that we do that don't help us remember Krishna, we should avoid those things. And that will help us develop all the good qualities that devotees have, all the good qualities that devotees are expected to have, all the good qualities that will make the rest of the people in the world follow the devotees. We're the Sankirtan movement, we want to invite everyone in to, yes, you all should chant Hare Krishna. You all should take up this process. One time I was on Harinam Sankirtan in front of Sather Gate in University of California at Berkeley, and there were some homeless people there who were scoffing at us, and we were chanting and everything, and some homeless man was heckling us. And I forget exactly how the conversation went, but I quoted to him from the Bible. I don't remember how it came up that way, but Jesus said, "By their fruits you should know them." I told him, by their fruits you should know them. You should know who's really godly by seeing how they have godly qualities. And then he surprised me, because he was a homeless man. I didn't expect him to be so sharp. Sometimes people in the mode of ignorance are expert at finding the faults in others, the real faults that are there. And he said, "Well, I see your qualities. You're Hare Krishna devotees. You mistreat your children. You mistreat your wives. You have all these bad qualities." He started saying. And I felt that he was defeating me, actually. That if we have bad qualities, it means we haven't become good at remembering Krishna, right? And how to become good? If we're having problems So it works both ways. The reason we have these principles, 4 regular principles, the 16 rounds, the things that we do on the order of the spiritual master, is to help us remember Krishna always and never forget him. And also if we're having trouble with, like the first verse suggests, if we're having trouble with these principles or we're falling down from our position as saintly devotees, it's because we have neglected to remember Krishna. And we can help ourselves. If it's difficult for us, we should chant better rounds. Maybe chant some more extra rounds. Maybe cut out watching television or something that's causing us to forget Krishna. So it works, it's both ways, that these principles are servants of the basic principle to always remember Krishna, and also so that as their servants, they help us remember Krishna, and also if we don't remember Krishna, we're going to fall down from these principles as well. So we have to be very careful to. So Srila Prabhupada therefore says the most essential instruction is, at least for the neophytes, we should chant at least 16 rounds. In Caitanya Caritamrta, Lord Chaitanya won't take lunch at anyone's home who's not a lakpati. A lakpati means someone who has 100,000. So you might think it means he has 100,000 rupees or $100,000 or 100,000, whatever. What he's saying is that he has to chant 100,000 names every day. But he's saying it in this way, kind of humorous way, that he has 100,000. Because he chants 100,000 names. If you chant 64 rounds, you chant a little more than 100,000 names. If you chant 16 rounds, of course, 25,000, a little more than that, maybe 27,000 names. So in the Gaudiya Math, the sannyasis were expected to chant 64 rounds every day. Prabhupada initially asked the devotees in Iskcon to chant 64 rounds, and they said, we can't do it. Then he said, all right, 32 rounds, and then they said, we can't do that. And they said, all right, 16 rounds, and they said, oh, even that's too hard. And he said, no, 16 rounds minimum. For neophyte devotees, as he says here, even if Westerners are not accustomed to sitting in one place and concentrating for a very long time, that if you don't chant 16 rounds at least, you're not going to be able to remember Krishna all the time. If you're chanting 16 rounds, and then the rest of your activities are dedicated to devotional service, you're making garlands for the deities, you're worshiping the deities, you're cleaning the temple, you're cooking for the deities, you're going on Harinam, you're going on book distribution, you're going out to some home program, speaking engagement, going to a college or a high school to talk to people about Krishna consciousness. All these things are ways that we can remember Krishna. And that's the basic purpose of everything. Now, we should not think, therefore, that we don't have to follow the regular principles. So there's a corollary verse in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that Prabhupada often quoted, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatrika Vidhinbidha Aikantike Harer Bhaktir Utpadaya Kalpate. That if someone says, oh, all I have to do is remember Krishna, so I'm going to do it in some way that's contrary to the teachings of the scriptures, then he says that's a disturbance in society. That, when sometimes, for example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni emphasizes so much that Krishna consciousness is the goal that he says, like, Tyaktva swadharmang charanam bhujam harer bhajana pakvota patatato yudi. He says that, even if one gives up his religious duties in order to chase after the lotus feet of Krishna, and even if he falls down, yatra even if he falls down, he hasn't lost anything. And otherwise, even if he does all his duties perfectly, but he doesn't worship Krishna, then what has he gained? The goal is to achieve Krishna. Notpada yed yadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam, right? Dharmasya hyapavargyasya nartartaya upakalpate. No, Dharmak svanishtitak pungsang vishvaksena katasuyaha notpada yed yadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam. This is Sutta Goswami in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. He's saying that even if you perform all your duties according to varna and ashrama, that is, if you if you live a moral life, if you do things that you're supposed to do in society, but you don't achieve attraction for Krishna, then you're wasting your time, right? You're wasting your time. Life is for remembering Krishna. That's what the goal of life is. And then the other verse I was started to say is those who are on the path of liberation, they shouldn't waste their life's energy pursuing sense gratification. They should get as much sense gratification as you need to maintain body and soul together, and use your full energy for inquiring into the absolute truth. The absolute truth, which is then described as realized in three features as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Srimad Bhagavatam is the book that explains this Bhagavan feature. This is the goal of life, to go up to the highest level of realization of the absolute truth, to realize Krishna, Bhagavan. And so if you don't do that, then even if you're a perfectly aristocratic person who's everyone respects, or you're a great celebrity, you have all these attractive qualities of strength, fame, knowledge, renunciation, wisdom, and beauty. But if you don't have Krishna consciousness, what have you got? You don't have anything. You're going to fall down. You're not going to be able to maintain, you're going to have to take birth again. You're going to die and take birth according to your karma somewhere else. So Narada Muni is emphasizing the goal in Srimad Bhagavatam is so important that these other goals of following Dharma, even if you give them up to attain Krishna, and even if you don't attain Krishna, you're not the loser actually. But you don't have to give them up. In other words, if you want to be a devotee of Krishna, you should follow the principles of Dharma. In fact, if you don't, Yesham Twantagatam Papam, as I was saying, Krishna consciousness is for those who are pious and who are free from sin. If you chant Hare Krishna, you're free from sin. If you chant Hare Krishna with the mentality that it eradicates sin, so I'll commit some more sin and then I'll get over it by chanting Hare Krishna, that's a great offense to the holy name. It won't work. You can't take advantage of the holy name that way. So we're supposed to follow these principles, Varnashrama, Charyavata, Vishnu Aradyate, Purushena Pumakpuman Vishnu Aradyate. So these principles of the Varnashram Dharma are meant for satisfying Vishnu. He wants to see us be honest. He wants to see us be self-controlled. He wants to see us perform austerities. We don't lay on bed of nails. Like maybe we saw some pictures from the Mahakumbha Mela recently. They had these yogis who put their hand up like this and they never let it down all their life, and it becomes atrophied and their fingernails grow and dig into their... I mean, that Krishna, even demons are good at doing very severe austerities. One demon was going to chop his own head off to offer it into the fire for Lord Shiva. We don't have those austerities. Actually, our austerities are very simple. Wake up early in the morning, keep yourself clean, take a bath. I mean, if you don't follow these, it's actually more austere to let yourself stay dirty and, you're always itchy and smell bad and stuff like that. No, these austerities, be clean, wake up, put on your tilak, eat prasadam. Krishna prasadam is actually wonderful. It's healthy diet, vegetarian diet. Some people think, oh, you're so austere, you can't eat. You've probably all experienced this. You go to some place where there's non-devotees and they say, oh, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, like as if you wanted to eat their pork chops or something like that. But no, it's not really austerity. It's actually a clean, healthy life. Prabhupada's poem on the Vyasa Puja Day for Bhakti Siddhanta, he said something like, a healthy life as Caitanya wrought, pleasing and simple as morning dew, something like that. I'm maybe not getting it right, but so we should perform some austerity. Whatever we do, yat kuroshi, yat ashnasi, yat juhosi, dadasiya. So whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever we offer in sacrifice, whatever charity we give, whatever austerities we perform, these are things that people do to be good people, but we should do them as offerings to Krishna and for us to help us remember Krishna. We should do them. We can't avoid doing them. We shouldn't be uncharitable people. We shouldn't be churlish people. We shouldn't make enemies. If you go on the internet, on the social media, you'll find the communications often devolve into some violent thing where everybody wants to hurt each other by their words, which is not very good. It's not these godly qualities. If we remember Krishna, it will help us avoid having those ungodly qualities, and that makes for a very happy life. We're actually teaching something to make people happier, and that's how preaching is effective. People aren't going to be effective if we say, "Oh, here we're prescribing you some very bitter medicine. You have to take it," and it may taste bitter at first. Then Rupa Goswami says, "Syat Krishna nama charitati sukhi tat sitapya vidya pitopatasya rasanasya narochikanu kintwadharada anudinam kalu sarvajukstra swadvikramad bhavati tadgata mulahantri." That just like sometimes when you have I had jaundice. I went to India and I got jaundice one time, very bad. I was all yellow and stuff, and I couldn't walk past a restaurant where they were cooking things. There was fat in it. It would make me want to vomit. Things tasted very bad. It changed your sense of everything, And he says that because we have this ignorance, we don't want to chant Hare Krishna. We'll chant Hare Krishna, and it's not attractive to us, and we want to do something else. We think of something else we have to do. We want to go read that magazine, or some other distracting activity. But that's because of the disease of ignorance. So he says it's like jaundice. You don't want to taste something that's nice and juicy and sweet because your senses have been affected by this disease. But it's simply wonderful that, and we used to call these little sweet balls simply wonderful. I guess we still do, simply wonderful sweet balls. It's simply wonderful that by chanting these names regularly, every day, then that disease of jaundice is destroyed at the root, and then we can taste how sweet it is. Srila Prabhupada one time said, when they said, "What is it like to chant Hare Krishna properly?" He said, "You'll think, why 16 rounds? Why not 1 million? Why not 100,000 rounds?" Or something like that. If we're actually advancing Krishna consciousness, we'll find that our chanting japa is very, very relishable. It's actually a great privilege. And it's not like, "Oh, my spiritual master's given me this burden. He makes me sit for 2 hours every day and chant, and I can't do the other things I want to do." No, my spiritual master has given me this order that I get to chant at least 2 hours every day. I might have other duties if I live in the temple and there's things they need me to do. I have to do them. I have to clean the kitchen or whatever. But I get to say, no, at least I'm going to chant these 16 rounds. That's the most important regulation, most important order that Srila Prabhupada has given me. What does he say here? Most essential. Of all the regulative principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is the most essential. I don't want to get in trouble with the temple president that, someone is taking all day long to chant his 16 rounds and says, "Oh, I can't clean the kitchen because I haven't finished my rounds." You should be able to chant within 2 hours, 2.5 hours at most, A lot of devotees chant in an hour and a half. 16 rounds, 16 good rounds, and then you can do your other duties that you have to do, which also help you remember Krishna. But this is the most essential principle. It's a great privilege that you get to chant Krishna's holy name. Not everybody gets that. Not everybody knows. They don't get the association of a devotee. We're so fortunate we've got the association of a great devotee, Srila Prabhupada, and he's prescribed this medicine for us. Lord Caitanya has brought this medicine from the spiritual world, and it will arise like the sun in the heart and destroy the ignorance that's there, and the darkness of ignorance that's there. And so I'll stop here, and I'd like some discussion. Yes, Prabhu. Please tell me your name also.
It's Max.
Max. Hare Krishna, Max.
Hare Krishna. You're talking about developing good qualities, and I see lots of bad qualities in my thinking. I don't necessarily act on them. I'm wondering, should I be very much, give myself a hard time about, because I do,
Well, you should. It's good that you're recognizing these as bad qualities, but giving yourself a hard time won't eradicate the bad qualities. What will eradicate the bad qualities is chanting good Hare Krishna, remembering Krishna. I mean, that's the essence of this class. So don't beat yourself up, but make sure that you rectify it. That's what I heard one class from Radhanath Swami, and he was talking about a class that Srila Prabhupada gave at New Vrindavan, and one devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, it's because of, sometimes we can't follow the principles because of weakness. And Prabhupada said, weakness? Radhanath Swami described it being like Prabhupada was like roaring like a lion. Rectify it, we have bad qualities. We've been in this material world for a long, long time. Even devotees, myself, I still have many bad qualities. I still become attracted to, sinful behavior. I'm not, it should be like whatever Krishna wants is like nectar, and whatever Krishna doesn't want is like poison. But sometimes you think, you do something sinful, nectar, that's a bad quality, We still have these things from long habits from long ago. Even devotees who've been practicing for 50 years or more still may have some bad habits. Maybe they haven't been practicing perfectly, I'm speaking for myself, but sometimes it's a gradual process, it takes prolonged use. But the medicine is not to feel bad and feel guilty and get depressed about it. And you should recognize it. This is a bad thing. I can't do that. I have to rectify it. But the medicine to rectify it is to remember Krishna. That's what these verses are teaching. And even if you don't have those bad qualities, if you don't remember Krishna, you're going to develop the bad qualities later. That's a fact. You can't really have all the good qualities unless you're a pure devotee of Krishna. Anything, did that answer your question completely, or?
Yes, thank
you. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the class. So you're mentioning about qualities again, and that one remains equipoised no matter what happens. What does that mean in the sense of, so I may be disturbed about something, but I just continue to do my seva? Or does it mean that in the mind, does a devotee not get disturbed by things? It may get disturbed, but they remain equipoised, meaning they keep on doing their seva. Is that what that means?
The word equipoised is used a lot. Krishna says, samatvam yogam uchite, right? In the second chapter, that siddhya siddho, in whether you do it perfectly or you don't do it perfectly, you should remain fixed in yoga. That's what yoga is called, is equipoise. And one should consider pebbles, gold, and stones as the same, or the yogis who are advanced, they see them as the same. They're in fame and infamy, like Arjuna was in the beginning saying, that if I kill my superiors, I'll become infamous and I'll do all these bad things. And Krishna says, you do your duty regardless. So equipoise, I think, is when you see things as they really are, that everything's Krishna's energy, then it won't disturb you that if someone insults you. And when someone is an enemy, you'll see that they're just a spirit soul conditioned by different modes of material nature. They're not really your enemy. You're a spirit soul. You can't be burned by fire or chopped to pieces by weapons. So you can remain remembering Krishna happily, satisfaction. In the 6th chapter, there's that verse, Guranapi Vichalyate. When he's describing with someone in samadhi, he says that even in the most distressing circumstances, in the 6th chapter, there's that verse, Guranapi Vichalyate. When he's describing with someone in samadhi, he says that even in the most distressing circumstances, a person in samadhi remains in this. I don't. One thing, and even in the most difficult of circumstances, they remain undisturbed. So that's what the equipoise means, is we see everything as Krishna's energy. So the heat and cold, happiness and distress, instead of chasing after happiness and running away from distress, we do our duty to please Krishna, and the distress doesn't bother us. We see it as external. Because we're connected to the absolute truth internally. It doesn't interfere with our natural state of bliss, Krishna conscious bliss, even though we feel our senses are hurting us, or our mind. He said it's even harder in the 6th chapter. Right? It's even more advanced that you see the enemies and friends as equals than it is to see heat and cold as the same. So So the word equipoised is used a lot in the scriptures in little different ways, but it means that samatvam. It means that steadfastness by actual realization that everything is Krishna's energy, and that Krishna is our best friend, and that we're doing what we do for Krishna, what he likes us to do. And what seems like poison is, if Krishna wants us to do it, it's like nectar.
So I just remembered describes about the Goswamis, yeah? That they were, it was cold and they were shivering. I kind of remember that. Do you remember that somewhere where it described about they were...
I remember hearing they were shivering, whether it's because they're cold or because they didn't eat much and didn't sleep much, and really because they were in ecstasy. Preme thala dhala sonara anga. In the song we were singing this morning, the footbells were jingling because Lord Chaitanya was having prema.
I think the shivering there was something in regards to physical, outward, the elements or something.
They slept outside, yeah. They slept outside. Even though they did so much, they built all those temples, they found the holy places, they wrote all those books, and yet they lived so simply.
So they felt it, but they were beyond it. So they felt it, but they were so absorbed. Not that they didn't feel it. The body was shivering, but that it didn't bother them.
They remained in the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness, saying, "Oh, that's another bhajan that we should sing often, is the prayers to the 6 Goswamis. Not everybody, new devotees don't learn these songs. We should learn them, how these 6 Goswamis were like that." I don't want to take too much time, but it's the 50th anniversary of the Vrindavan temple, and they've been showing these memory tapes that Siddhanta had put together with people remembering about the 50 years ago, what it was like. And I think it was Smarahari, I forget who, I think it was Smarahari was talking about how they were living and what they didn't have food to eat, what they could eat was very plain, and how they were living was very plain. And then Srila Prabhupada said, "This is Goswami living," And when the first time I went to Vrindavan, of course, I love the fact that we can go stay in the guest house and go eat in the restaurant there and everything like that. But the first time I went there, Bhakti Churu Swami was saying, coming to Vrindavan, you shouldn't be comfortable, you shouldn't be able to go to a restaurant and have a nice hotel to stay in. You should be austere, because you're here in Vrindavan, Krishna's land. Krishna might be anywhere. So anyway, he was saying like that. He didn't like that we had a nice restaurant, but it's important that we have a nice restaurant that devotees can come and worship Krishna without being too uncomfortable. But I better stop because we're way after 9 o'clock already. But unless there's anything urgent that anybody else has. Hare Krishna, glories to Caitanya Caritamrta, glories to Sanatana Goswami. These are, by the way, I might not have mentioned this. We're still covering Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Sanatana Goswami. He's